Democratic socialists are against capitalism, except when it comes to themselves. Well, after running a campaign centered around affordability, one of Zohran Mamdani's first major decisions as mayor could be whether to give himself and the New York City Council a nice pay raise. That's because a new bill could bump pay for the city's elected officials by more than 16%. And it might land on Mamdani's desk after he's sworn in on January 1st. So salaries for city council members could go from $148,500 to more than $172,000. And Mamdani's own salary could jump from $258,750 to more than $300,000. Let's bring in Fox News contributor Marc Thiessen. Marc, I always love talking with you, and I'm curious, do you think Mamdani's going to sign his own pay raise?
Well, I know he campaigned on affordability. I just didn't realize it was his own affordability that he was going to take care of first. I mean, the idea that this guy, I mean, think about this. He's going to be living in Gracie Mansion, a 5-bedroom mansion with a private chef. All of his transportation, all of his utilities, all of his costs of everything in life are taken care of, and he can't make it on $260,000. That's a little bit absurd. So, you know, but this is what the left always does. You know, when socialism comes in and socialists come to power, the elites live well, and the rest of the people are on bread lines and at government grocery stores. So I guess that's where New York is going.
Yeah, I always love the transformation of the socialists. You know, Bernie becomes a millionaire, AOC's caught flying first class, and those viral images. It's fun to watch. I do want to bring this up because you and I both worked in the White House. You know, I was press secretary. You're in speech writing. Yes. You know, we're in the West Wing, and there's all this discussion about the autopen. President Trump saying he's undoing much of the executive orders that were conducted with the autopen, which is par for the course. Every president does it. But here's what I don't think is par for the course. Certainly wasn't when I was in Trump administration 1. I'm curious about you and Bush. With Bush, here's the Axios headline. Biden officials raise concerns with how he issued pardon when he used an autopen. They say the staff secretary who manages the paper flow repeatedly asked for more details and confirmation of the president's intentions with the autopen. When did we get Biden's approval of this? She would ask in an email. It wasn't ordinary for me to question whether Trump approved something or not. What about you with President Bush?
Well, what we found was that there was actually a ruling by the Office of Legal Counsel that the autopen was legal as long as the president intended to use it. But Bush didn't want to have any doubts about things. So I remember once there was a continuing resolution to keep the government open, and he was at the APEC summit out in Asia, and they actually took an aide and flew the bill out to Asia so that he could physically sign the bill. So, you know, that's how seriously he took this. And the problem with Biden is that everybody now knows he was non compos mentis. There were people making decisions for him all the time. And so the staff secretary clearly had concerns about this and was aware of it and wasn't sure that Biden was actually issuing these orders. And so, the pardon is a power of the president himself. And to have pardons signed by autopen when the people running the autopen weren't even sure the president had agreed to pardon somebody, that's pretty bad stuff.
Yeah, the DOJ was asking questions, too, about the clemency process. There's a whole lot that was going on. We're going to take a quick pivot to politics here because there is some interesting polling.
Okay.
Harry Enton over at CNN, here's what he said about Trump's approval within his own party.
Donald Trump, if you look at 21st century presidents' own party approval at this point in term 2, who leads the pack? It's Donald John Trump. 87% of Republicans approve of Donald John Trump. You go back to 2013, 78% of Democrats supported Barack Obama, and it was 78% of Republicans who supported George W. Bush back in 2005 at this point. So Donald Trump has the biggest highest own party approval of any president who served their entire second term in the 21st century.
I mean, Mark, it's really impressive, but the question becomes, look, he motivates people when he's on the ballot, but he's not going to be on the ballot next time around. And Can the Republican Party hold that sway?
Yeah, well, if you're a conservative, what's not to like? I mean, I do a column every year, the 10 best and 10 worst things that Donald Trump did. I did it in his first term. I'm doing it in his second year. Here's just my partial list. Abbey Gate bombing. Biden promised to get the Abbey Gate bombers. He waited 3 years, did nothing. Trump did it in 6 weeks. Obliterated the Iranian nuclear program. Got NATO to spend 2% of GDP and raise it to 5%. shut down the border, 25 Supreme Court victories, to trade deals with Britain, Indonesia, Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, European Union, rare earth deal with Australia and Ukraine, brought the nation's elite universities to heel, one big beautiful bill, made his tax cuts permanent, cut taxes on tips and overtime, launched the second Trump defense buildup, helped the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force meet their recruiting goals early, brought 8 wars to an end, historic Middle East peace deal, arming Ukraine with NATO funds instead of American taxpayer dollars, and protecting our cities with the National Guard. That's just a partial list. I mean, he's done more in 1 year than Joe Biden did in 4 years without the disastrous Afghan withdrawal and all the terrible things that happened under Biden. So this is one of the most remarkable first years of a presidency in my lifetime.
It truly is. And when you come back, I'll be asking you about your favorite topic, Taylor Swift. You love talking about Taylor Swift, Marc Thiessen on Outnumbered. Defaming you on the way to my commercial break. Yes, you do. That's a joke, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marc.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.